Hey, welcome back. Before we get into this review, I want to tell you a pretty unfortunate secret. I have not watched much Scorsese. Listen, my life has not been that long yet, so while I'm planning to watch Marty's filmography, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But when Killers of the Flower Moon was announced, and it was 3 hours and 26 minutes long, I knew I had to at least watch some of his movies in preparation. I had already seen The Departed and, for some reason, After Hours, and in the lead up to Killers of the Flower Moon's release, I checked out Raging Bull and Goodfellas, and I enjoyed every single one of them quite a bit, with Raging Bull being at the top of the list. But then, I sat down and watched the fucking mammoth of a movie that is Killers of the Flower Moon, and that changed, because this movie is really, really, really good. And the best part is, I don't even think I'm going to be spoiling this time around. This is going to be a non-spoilers review, and that's because the main message I want to send with this video is not that this movie is good or bad, although it is very good. It's that it should be watched. Forget the runtime, you should watch this movie. Let's begin. The first thing I want to mention with this movie is, of course, the runtime. So the question is, does it hinder the movie or not? And the answer is, no, not really. I think the runtime is most noticeable around the beginning, honestly. The beginning is slower than the rest of the story, and I think it's possible to cut off only 2 or 3 minutes of that section, but the amount of setup and build-up in that first act that pays off later is immense, so I'm not really mad at it. The editing by Thelma Schoonmaker is so damn good, and I don't at all mean to insult it with that detail about the first act, because making a 3.5-hour movie not feel like forever to general audiences seems like something that I personally could never accomplish even if I had decades of experience. And she pulls it off really well. The edits know when to be quick and when to take their time, with both of those options building lots of tension. This movie will feel at least somewhat long to you, no doubt, but it's really not much of a problem at all. Moving on, there's the tone. The tone is, as you may have guessed, extremely heavy. The unfiltered and disturbing tragedy that unfolds in this film will make you sad, but most of the time, in my opinion, it just made me angry and disappointed. It is unreal how effective this story is at shifting your perspective on government and businesses. Even if you already hated both of those things, you're about to be educated on a story that will stick with you. Scorsese films that tell true stories always do so in a way that makes you interested in the real people involved, and this is no exception. It's insane that we don't already know about this story, so I want to make damn sure that I know even more about it than this movie tells me now. One more thing I'd like to mention about the tone is how well the score by Robbie Robertson contributes to it. The way the music changes over the course of the story and is purposefully left out at certain points subconsciously is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Everything about this movie feels very delicately made. Now it's time we get to the performances, with the main three being Leo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, and good old De Niro. Gladstone out of these three is actually the one I've been seeing getting the most attention, and I'm very happy with that. Like I said, everything about this movie is delicate, and her performance is too. Each and every scene she's in, you learn something new about her, from the way she speaks or the way she carries herself, but you never really know what she's thinking. Once Molly becomes the only person you're really rooting for, everything surrounding her character seems even more tragic than it already was, and when it all wraps up, you realize how important it was for her story to be told. I think Lily Gladstone did it justice, for sure. I'm happy to say Robert De Niro also served up a fucking great lead performance for like the 20th time in a Scorsese film. Bill Hale is a truly despicable man to watch, and De Niro is good at playing a despicable guy. The way he gets away with everything and flaunts around town like he's the king, which he sort of is, will make you want him dead. Plus, I can tell that by the end of the movie, he still thinks that what he's done was just and fair, which only makes me want him dead more. Such a great performance. That brings us to Leo, who I will admit was probably my least favorite of the three, but that doesn't mean he wasn't great. I think I just find Ernest to be the least captivating and deep, as he's the main character, but he's not really the one you're rooting for, or the one you're rooting against. I mean, you're still gonna hate him, but one of the most interesting things to watch for with Ernest is the way other people treat him. And that just shows more about their characters, not his, really. Still, Leo does a lot to make this character come to life, and him playing both sides makes every fake-ass scene he has with the Osage people tense and painful, but especially the scenes with Molly, his own wife, will hurt. So while I prefer Molly and Hale as characters, I respect how effective Ernest still was. He's far from just okay. I also want to quickly throw out some of my favorites in the supporting cast. I thought that Jesse Plemons was introduced at pretty much the perfect time, despite how late he shows up. By that point in the movie, we've learned a ton about this town and the murders, so Tom White coming over to make it all fall apart makes sense, and you have no idea how cathartic it feels, even if you know things aren't going to go well in the end. Another one I believe is Charlie Musselwhite as Alvin Reynolds. I don't really remember this character's name too well. He's basically a fairly old man working for Hale, and he's the only one in that group who I feel a little bit bad for. Stabbing your friends in the back for money is something that a lot of Scorsese characters will do without a doubt, but the complexity of Reynolds makes it seem more like he's been dragged into this and is pressured into continuing. Sure, he'll still do it, but he shows far more restraint than Blackie or Kelsey Morrison. There's a few more that I really liked, but I'll make these quick. Cara Jade Myers as Anna Brown, William Baileau as Henry Rowan, and Tantu Cardinal as Lizzie Q, who has one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire film. If you've seen it, you know it. The final thing I'd like to cover before the ending is our boy Marty's directing. I think it's phenomenal. I mean, what did you expect? The choices made with what to show us and what to leave in the background, when to hold still, when to focus, when to hold back, it all feels perfected. It couldn't be clearer that this is a story that Scorsese had a vision for and was passionate about, because the care taken in making sure this story was told right is huge. Plus, while his style is all over it, there's something about Killers of the Flower Moon that feels very unique and different from at least the movies I've seen from him. And that final shot that you're left with after those 3 hours, if that doesn't stick with you and imprint itself in your mind, I'd be shocked. The very last scene in this movie is one to go in the history books. The most important thing to learn from this story isn't shown until the very end, and that's that this story was never told. I bet you didn't know much of anything about this story or these people, even though it seems like it was just as important as any other horrific event in American history that we do tend to hear about now. This highlights the importance of a hugely famous director discovering these events and being inspired by them to create a movie that, by now in the video, you should be buying tickets to watch. If I did my job, you want to see this film now. I usually wouldn't say something like this, but educate yourself. It's not a documentary, and it's not some history lesson that's gonna bore you. Get over yourself. It's just an important story that I believe everyone should know about. And the final line of this movie is... it's perfect. Down to the man who said it. This movie did everything about the history of the Osage people and the Oklahoma murders justice. It deserves all the praise it gets. So that's about all I have to say. There's an endless amount of things you could say about Killers of the Flower Moon. It is 3 hours and 26 minutes long, but I think that summarizes my thoughts pretty well. I'm gonna give this movie about a 9.5 out of 10. I really do believe it's that good, definitely one of the best of the year. I'll leave you with one final message, which is go see this movie. I might be saying that a lot, but you really should, believe me, it's worth it. It left me speechless and even more interested in Martin Scorsese than I already was. Thanks for watching the whole video. I don't know exactly what I'll be reviewing next. I think it would be a bit humiliating to sandwich a Scorsese movie between 2 episodes of a Marvel show, so I doubt the Loki reviews will be continuing. I guess that means we'll just see where things go from here. Bye now.